July 20th, 1973, the day he died. Bruce Lee was a prominent martial artist, actor, filmmaker, philosopher, and American writer. Beyond his characteristic features, he was born in the lands of North America, only to later unleash his potential in the East, where he would leave a mark much deeper than the claw of a dragon. His inventive ability within the old and new martial arts set him apart from the rest and placed him in one of the best places in cinema and real life. He fought against incredible fighters like Chuck Norris and a legendary master, Yao Lin, and always came out victorious. Interestingly, his demise would not be in battle, but due to medical problems that would leave him served in the cold hands of death. During the post-production of Enter the Dragon, his best movie, Lee wasn't feeling well and he stepped away from the voice dubbing group to go to the bathroom to freshen up. Away from the sound consoles, he managed to wet his face before falling to the ground amidst convulsions and vomiting. The collapse of his body was imminent and he lost consciousness. Noticing his absence, his companions went out to look for him and found him lying on the floor. At that moment, his brain was suffering from an uncommon swelling and Lee was having his last fight, this time against his life impulse. Before we start with this story, I ask you please to leave your like. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any video from this channel. Now let's get started. Bruce Lee came into this world on the morning of November 27th, 1940 at Jackson Street Hospital in San Francisco, United States. It was the year of the Golden Dragon in the Chinese calendar, which was supposed to be a good luck omen. His real name was Li Junfan, but his parents called him Siphon, which means little dragon. The name Bruce came from a hospital nurse. It was a way to help him have a name that wouldn't cause problems with the American birth certificate. Along with his parents, Li Hoi-Chuen and Grace, Ho and his 4 siblings were moved to Kowloon in Hong Kong when Bruce was only 3 months old. They lived in a small 2-bedroom house during his early childhood years. Given the context of the Japanese occupation from 1942 to 1945, during World War II he stayed with his family, leading an almost hidden life. From one side of the house, you could see the military camps, a situation that inspired Bruce to awaken his passion for fighting. While other children waved at the planes crossing the sky, he was usually found on the rooftop in a defensive position with his fists clenched, trying to kick at the aircrafts. As an adult, he would say that he did this with the intention of knocking them down. Bruce Lee's father, Hoi-Chuen, was an actor in Cantonese films and a comedian. After the war, he returned to his job accompanied by his son. Although Bruce's first big screen appearance was at 2 months old, playing a baby as an extra in the movie Golden Gate Girl. His first opportunity to be seen as an actor came when he was 6 years old, when he was cast and immediately took part in his first film, The Birth of Mankind. Then at 10 years old, in 1950, he worked with his father on The Kid, filming around 20 movies throughout his childhood. It was there that he was nicknamed Li Xiu Lung, which means Little Dragon. Lee attended Taeksun Elementary School near his home. But at 12 years old, his parents enrolled him in an English-speaking Catholic institute called La Salle College. He was soon expelled for bad behavior. Apparently for Bruce, school was not the most important thing, which is why he was defiant and argumentative towards the teachers. The little dragon had admitted to being a boy who was looking for fights as a child, using chains and pens with spikes inside. But one day, returning home from school, he was surprised by a gang and received a beating he would never forget. From that moment on, he took an interest in martial arts. At 13 years old, he trained and practiced with his father. More formally, he practiced the Chinese martial arts of Tai Chi and later the Wing Chun style with Master Ip Man. A character quite well known today, at least in the martial arts field, due to the movies starring Donnie Yen which bear his same name. Meanwhile, after being expelled from school, LaSalle was enrolled in another Catholic school, St. Francis Xavier. In this new place, there were school sports tournaments. Bruce signed up for one of them and managed to win in the third round and by knockout against the three-time champion Gary Elms. This started Bruce in a world where he would be accustomed to coming out victorious. He threw punches and kicks while seeking a grounding wire, ultimately signing up for dance classes, which would later lead him to become a cha-cha-cha champion. In 1959, Bruce participated in a fight representing his master Ip Man, facing off against a representative from the Choi Lee Foot School. The result was that Bruce ended up with a slight eye injury, but his opponent was left unconscious and also toothless after a series of very fast punches. The misunderstood little dragon ended up being reported to the police by the parents of the victim. Being so problematic, his parents didn't know what to do anymore. They then decided to send him to his older sister, who had been living in San Francisco, United States for some time. By that time, Bruce had already graduated from high school, so he had a valid foundation to start a new life in the United States. Lee's education was not only limited to learning martial arts and physical training. At 18 years old, there in North American lands, he studied philosophy at the University of Washington. He financed his career by working as a kitchen assistant in a Chinese restaurant and as a columnist in newspapers. The knowledge he acquired during his university studies, he poured and applied to his martial art. He was interested in the thoughts of Taoism, of Eastern and Western philosophers like Lao Tse and Chuan Tse. During that time, Bruce practiced Kung Fu and other styles where the use of legs was predominant. He was not used to it, as in Wing Chun the legs kept a low profile. He soon began teaching martial arts to ordinary citizens who were interested. First he did it in a rented room, other times he used parks and also empty garages. He had a 1-to-1 scale wooden dummy in the backyard of Ruby Chow's restaurant. To intensify his practices, students were constantly joining and soon he ran out of physical space to carry out the trainings. So it was that in 1963 he opened his first martial arts school, the Yufan Kung Fu Institute, in Seattle, and later opened 2 more schools in Oakland and Los Angeles. His style combined everything he had learned from disciplines of boxing, Western fencing, judo, Filipino fencing, Muay Thai and Tan Sudo, which he learned thanks to his friend Chuck Norris. While teaching, he developed his own style of martial art, Ji Kunedo, also called the way of the intercepting fist, obtaining his own method of combat. With it, the internalized concepts would evolve, both from what he learned from the university and from the disciplines practiced. In 1964, Ed Parker, known for being the founder of American Kenpo Karate and for having brought to fame characters like Frank Sinatra and Elvis Presley, organized an international karate championship in Long Beach. Bruce Lee was one of the guests, with the purpose of demonstrating his skills. This contact would open the doors of Hollywood for him. In August that year, Bruce married his longtime girlfriend Linda, whom he had been dating since university. Lee impressed everyone by doing 2 finger push-ups and delivering the 1-inch punch. On that occasion, Bob Barker was the one receiving Bruce's punches. After the demonstration, he had to stay at home for several days, unable to go to work because of the pain he had all over his body. During the Celebrity Karate Championship, Lee met Dan Inosanto, who first served as a sparring partner in the demonstrations. And after being impressed with Bruce, he decided to accompany him in all the presentations he made. Over time, he became his student at the Yufan Kung Fu Institute in Los Angeles. Lee taught him and then certified him as the first instructor of his school. Today, he's the one who has the total certification to teach the style of Bruce Lee. Among the audience was Jay Severin, a celebrity stylist who introduced him to the film world within a year. Beyond his future career in acting and directing, accompanied by demonstrative tournaments, Bruce Lee received many real challenges but only accepted a few. Bruce was very clear when talking about fights. I was always asked, "Hey Bruce, are you really that good?" And I would say, Well, if I say yes, you'll think I'm boasting, and if I say I'm not sure, you'll call me a liar. I'll try to be honest and say it in another way. I'm not afraid of any opponent. I know I'm self-sufficient, and I'm not worried. When I make the decision to fight or defend myself, there's nothing more to talk about. It's over and you better kill me. Before. One of the most important real-life battles of that time was against Wong Jackman. Bruce Lee was challenged by the traditional Chinese community to precisely not teach Kung Fu to people who were not of that origin. The one who challenged him was the direct student of Ma Kim Fung, known for being the master of Jin Ji Quan and Gushu. First, he had given him a warning to stop teaching, but he did not listen. Then, Wong Jackman, trained in the Yaolin style, set a date for the match. Given the outcome, if Bruce Lee lost, he would have to stop teaching martial arts to foreigners, in addition to closing all his schools. If he won, he would have the freedom to teach anyone. On the day of the fight, Wong Jackman wanted to set rules for the combat, but Lee indicated that the conditions were set by the challenged, leaving the combat completely without rules. Both had all the freedoms. There are several versions regarding what happened in this encounter. Lee's wife recounted in her book Bruce Lee, The Man Only I Knew. And in accordance with what Bruce Lee himself declared in a radio interview, commenting that Jackman, after receiving some blows, he was hit by the dragon, who knocked him down and once on the ground, immobilized him, giving him repeated blows to the head. Lee, seeing that everything was already said, asked him 3 times in Cantonese, "Is it enough?" Receiving as a response, "Yes, it's enough." Other voices said that Jackman attacked first and Bruce responded with 3 straight punches, although only the first clearly hit his jaw. He backed off and then attacked Lee again, hitting his face. This made Lee react and chase after him, who seemed to be running away. Bruce attacked him so much that his fists swelled up. Then he cornered him and Jackman surrendered. After this fight, Bruce Lee noticed that it took him a long time to win, and his physical condition was not as optimal as he wanted. So he decided to improve his condition to increase his endurance. He also decided to modify his Kung Fu and added several new lateral movements. Given the swelling he had suffered, he decided to train his fists with hard sandbags and stones. All these changes and improvements laid a clear foundation for what would later become, as said by others, in Bruce Lee's Kung Fu, which years later he would label as Jeet Kune Do, with a clear evolution in combat. In 1965, Life and Death would appear in Lee's story on February 1st, 1965. Along with his wife Linda, they became parents to Brandon, and 6 days later, his father Lee Hoi Chuen left this world forever. Bruce quickly attended his father's funeral. Upon return, he wondered if new information could balance the negativity. Ed Parker invited him to a Hollywood audition with William Dossier, the producer of the Batman Dossier series. He knew about Bruce through a mutual friend, Jay Severin, who was also a friend of Jaron Tate, who was murdered by the Manson clan. Bruce signed a contract and simultaneously began drama classes at the 20th Century Fox studio. In order to bring out the best in his characters and become more expressive and to break into the American film world. He was very excited and hopeful about this project, but unfortunately everything was suspended. Although unknowingly, he was already part of the Hollywood world. A year later, in February of 1966, Bruce played Kato in the Green Hornet television series. The Green Hornet. He moved with his family to Los Angeles. The series was a success and Trans moved to the screen. Bruce, who improved everything he touched, showed an innovative fighting technique to the American public, who at that time were not out of boxing fights. The series lasted 1 season and ended a year later. Similarly, Bruce had a participation with his character Kato in 3 episodes of the Batman series with Adam West. Almost at the same time, during 1967, he opened another institute, Jun Fan Gun Fu, in the Chinatown neighborhood of Los Angeles. However, he preferred to keep this school anonymous. He painted the windows so that it couldn't be seen from the outside and selected who could enter and who could not. His apprentices ranged from talented martial artists and film artists to people related to the entertainment world that he had known. While alternating personalized classes, he had small roles in Ironside, Here Comes the Brides, and a brief stint on the Philip Marlowe series. In 1970, he injured a sacral bone in his back during a weight training session, which required him to undergo a tedious rehabilitation process. He remained inactive for a long time, 6 months without being able to move. During that time, he devoted himself to studying and writing notes that would be edited after his death, like the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. He never got to publish them in his lifetime, even though his personal doctor told him he might never walk again. Not only did he do it again, but his new fights were much better than before. And he continued his rigorous training in pursuit of perfecting his martial art. While recovering, he also devoted himself to working on the script for The Silent Flute along with other screenwriters. The project was sent to Warner Bros. And approved after a few months, but on the condition that it be filmed in India. Unfortunately, they couldn't find locations that would work for what they had in mind. In 1971, Bruce had in mind The Warrior, a movie about a Shaolin monk traveling through the American Old West in search of knowledge and adventure. Paramount Pictures and Warner Bros. Received the proposal, but both wanted Lee to set the action in the present as cowboy stories were not popular in that decade. Eventually, Warner accepted the idea of The Warrior, and the series was carried out under another name you might know, Kung Fu. But of course, not all was good news. When Bruce found out that he was not going to be in charge of the project, he was totally disappointed. Although it seemed incredible, he was not going to be the main actor, but a certain David Carradine who knew absolutely nothing about Kung Fu, but had something that Bruce Lee did not. Western features. He had been given the leading role to another, simply for discriminating him for his Chinese ancestry. The Kung Fu series was a hit, but Bruce refused to be overshadowed. In the middle of 1971, he traveled to Hong Kong and was surprised by what he had generated with his performance in The Green Hornet. There, people called the program The Caro Show. With renewed energy and happier, he returned to his home in Los Angeles and contacted him. A film producer in China, Raymond Cho, offered him good money for a leading role. He accepted, but first he had to finish the jobs he had started. New move, new beginning, from that new point in his career. He asked his right-hand men who were in charge of the martial arts schools to close and no longer teach what he had given them. The trade of his martial art would take an indefinite pause. Once settled in Hong Kong, Bruce traveled to Thailand to work on his first film, The Big Boss, also known as The Big Chief or Karate to Death in Bangkok. Before starting, Lee told the director, "I'm going to be the biggest Chinese star in the world." 6 weeks later, the film was finished and he was quite tired from the conditions in which it had been filmed. The film became a resounding success, managing to raise over $3 million. Bruce Lee then earned the Golden Crown of Martial Arts Cinema, becoming a national hero in China. The balance was now tipping to the other side. Producers were fighting for his work, but Lee had a signed contract and had to make 2 more films. He rejected everything that came his way and prepared for Feast of Fury, where he demonstrated the superiority of Kung Fu over Japanese martial arts, karate, judo, and samurai fencing. What he also demonstrated is that this film was going to be better than the previous one, grossing almost $5 million at the box office. Lee was then at peace. Finally, he was a star within the battles on the cinema screens and also in real life. It was then when Lee declined several proposals and embarked on a new project. He wanted to direct his own films. He partnered with producer Cho and both created the production company Concord Production Incorporated. In this way came Way of the Dragon, The Return of the Dragon. In this film, Bruce was an actor, screenwriter, co-producer, and director. And as if he didn't do almost everything, he also took care of playing the percussion in the main theme of the soundtrack. It was recorded in Rome, Italy. In the acting part, he was accompanied by actress Nora Miao, actor Bob Wall. and the 7-time world champion, the incredible Chuck Norris. It was in this movie where Lee crossed paths with Norris in a spectacular fight. The film is considered today a classic of martial arts, containing what many call the fight of the century, which took place inside the Roman Colosseum. A few days after the premiere of Way of the Dragon, which had been a success, Bruce received an offer of $500,000 from Warner Brothers to be the lead actor and co-director of the fight scenes in Blood and Steel. But he didn't like the name and asked for it to be called Enter the Dragon, translated into Spanish as Operation Dragon. It was obvious that if they had $500,000 to offer, they were not going to have any problem changing the name so that he could be part of this film. And so was born the first Chinese martial arts movie fully produced in Hollywood, Enter the Dragon. It began filming in January of 1973 in Hong Kong. The production was superior to what he was used to working with. The start was interrupted by problems with the script translation, in addition to some cultural conflicts, as the American team did not want to eat typical Chinese food. And there were also frequent injuries due to lack of special equipment to ensure safety in the riskier scenes. During the recording, Bruce suffered a cut from a bottle and was bitten by a cobra snake. However, nothing stopped the greatest exponent of martial arts. Bruce was very restless. He wanted everything to be perfect, he wanted to enjoy the applause and fame, but unfortunately, Enter the Dragon was shown in Hong Kong 6 days after his death. The success was explosive. It grossed $200 million on its premiere, only behind one movie. The Exorcist Bruce Lee and his posthumous fame invaded the American public. Game of Death was the next movie in his filmography. He had only recorded 40 minutes at the end of 1972. The feature film was finished by Golden Harvest and premiered in 1978, making use of a double and poor editing. At the beginning of this report, I talked about the last days of this master of martial arts. But what were they really like, and what really happened to him? When Bruce Lee woke up on his last morning, he was an active and healthy man, 32 years old. During that day, he had some meetings with producers, then he went to visit a friend's house. When night fell, Bruce Lee lay down on a mattress on the floor forever. But the world to this day wonders, how did Bruce Lee really die? There was no death blow, swords, blood, or broken bones. There was nothing more and nothing less than a great mystery and theories that persist to this day. It all started some time before, precisely when Lee collapsed in the bathroom of his production company. There he was rushed to the hospital where he complained of a severe headache and suffered seizures on several occasions. The doctors recognized the symptoms of a brain edema, a condition in which excess fluid in the brain caused swelling and pain. But it is something treatable, and that's what the doctors did. They injected him with a necessary drug called mannitol. He felt much better very quickly. Within hours, he resumed his exercise regimen and continued with his usual diet. A combination of vegetables, rice, fish, and milk that excluded all baked goods, refined flour, and most sugars. The day of Bruce Lee's death was quite eventful. Between meetings and gatherings, many commented that he seemed very lively. Around 7:30 in the evening, shortly before his departure, Lisa complained of a headache. They gave her an Equagesic, a common painkiller that contains aspirin, and a tranquilizer known as Meprobamate. After taking it, she went to bed. Hours later, when Lino went down to dinner, they went up to check on him and found him unconscious. They tried to wake him up, but they couldn't. They called a doctor who spent 10 minutes trying to revive him. Unable to bring him around, they sent him to a nearby hospital in an ambulance. But it was already too late. Bruce Lee had died. Because Lino's body showed external signs of injuries, an autopsy was performed which revealed that death was the result of severe brain inflammation. A buildup of fluid resulted in a 13% increase in the size of his brain. Chow, the producer and friend, claimed that Lee's death had been the result of an allergic reaction to the painkiller that had been administered to him. Although several subsequent investigations supported the official report, many conspiracy theories emerged. Chuck Norris, who was a great friend of Lee, claimed that the muscle relaxants he was taking had been tampered with. Chuck's words sparked a great debate about what else Lee was taking. Was there something more in the stimulants to keep him fit, herbal supplements to keep him healthy, or something that someone deliberately put there to kill him? There was also a rumor that Lee's death had been caused by a prostitute with whom he had become violent. The rumor claimed that Lee was under the influence of a powerful aphrodisiac that made him lose control, and the prostitute declared that she had killed him in self-defense. There were never any backups to corroborate the information this woman provided. Some fans of Lee claimed that the fatal dose of Coahesic was administered by Betty Ting Pei, who was the last person to see him alive. Rumors circulated that she had purposely poisoned him and had been working for a secret society that wanted Bruce Lee dead. Other theories blamed the Italian, Chinese, and American mafia. Even his own family members were blamed. But above all theories is the most powerful one: the curse of the Lee family. The legend of the Lisa family curse came to light 20 years after the death of the famous martial artist, when his son, Brandon Lee, followed in his father's footsteps, as an actor and as a fighter. In 1992, Brandon Lee was killed while performing in the movie that would propel him to stardom, The Crow. The report on this event and more data that I'm not going to provide here. You can find it in the video on my main channel, which is called Brandon Lee, The Curse of the Crow. I'll leave a link for you to watch it. Just like with his father, rumors of a conspiracy swirled, even after officials ruled that his death was accidental. The premature end of a second young man named Lee revived the curse of his family. Of course, esoteric theories were not going to be lacking. Bruce Lee's wife said he often told her about a haunting premonition he had. He said he was not going to live half as long as his father, who died at 64. Exactly twice the age Lee was on July 20th, 1972. The family said the curse followed an earlier lineage of Bruce, as he was born just after the death of his older brother, caused by reasons never clarified. In 1993, the biopic Dragon, the story of Bruce Lee by Rob Cohen, represented the actor's struggle against his ghosts in the form of a spirit that relentlessly haunted him. When in the final scene Bruce Lee confronts this ghost, the creature surrenders without a fight because it prefers to go haunt his son, Brandon. 2 weeks before the premiere of this movie, Brandon Lee died during the filming of The Crow. It was also rumored that Bruce Lee had been a victim of the death touch, the Din punch in Mac, used against him days before and with delayed effect by a martial arts master, Kung Fu, on behalf of a lineage of fighters who did not tolerate him. Beyond his sad ending, Lee left a very important legacy for martial arts. The fact that he created a combat method like Yunfang Kung Fu and then applied his philosophy to give birth to Jeet. Kunedo made him considered as the pioneer of contact fights and mixed martial arts. He was the one who transported Chinese martial arts to the West and the dissemination of Kung Fu. He propagated the Wing Chun system, which along with Tai Chi Chuan is the most practiced Kung Fu style in the world. After his death, the Chinese industry summoned every martial artist who physically resembled him and his technique to make films of dubious quality, in order to squeeze the brilliant trail that Lee had left. Magazines dedicated to martial arts also fell into overexploitation of his figure, revealing his techniques, training, personal life, punches, thoughts, and a myriad of details. There are monuments in his honor in various parts of the world, as well as the star that bears his name on the Avenue of Stars in Hong Kong. In March of 1993, he was posthumously awarded the Gold Award for Lifetime Achievement from the Hong Kong film industry. Of course, Bruce Lee's life has been brought to the big screen and series. In the year 2008, the television series The Legend of Bruce Lee premiered in Hong Kong, and it was also captured in the 1993 film Dragon, the Bruce Lee story featuring Jason Scott Lee, an actor who shared the same last name but had no connection to the family. His wife, Linda Cadwell, and his daughter Janan currently survive him. Emery Lee, who continues to uphold and promote her father's legacy through the Bruce Lee Foundation. The legacy remains intact to this day, and the dragon surely rests in peace after a life with so many fights. If you enjoyed today's video, please like, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications. I also invite you to leave a comment with a suggestion for possible future videos. I leave you a couple of recommendations so you can continue to marathon on this channel. And with nothing more to say, I bid you farewell. My name is Magnus Mephisto, and this was the day that goodbye.